thought about what it feels like to live with a chronic condition, navigating your everyday life, navigating it with a chronic condition like diabetes. Every single meal, every single activity, every single day, meticulous planning around that. That's my everyday. So before we go on, I want to ask you all, do you know someone or are you a diabetic? You may raise your hand. Okay. My second question is, of those who are diabetic, or if you know someone who's diabetic, is it related to a negative story? Maybe there's an amputation and not accepting it, or having the diagnosis and really struggling with it. You may raise your hand. Okay. So on that note, my name is Kaajal Vaghela, and I'm a type 1 diabetic of 33 years, and I'm here to share my story, my positive story around diabetes, everything that I've learned, and to help you live your best life fully. This is me. I was diagnosed at 5 years old in Johannesburg. So my mom noticed that I was losing a lot of weight. She would dress me in my quasi-school uniform, and my underwear would just drop off. She also noticed I was urinating a lot in the night. I'd leave my bed, and I wasn't playing with my cousins. I was just not a happy chappy. And a mother's intuition is always so right. She said, there's something wrong with my daughter. Now, unfortunately, the diabetes was in a honeymoon phase. I have type 1, and so the body was attacking its own self. It's different to type 2, but either way, it was in a honeymoon phase. It's almost like a car that's sputtering. It's providing a bit of insulin, and then it stops. And a little bit, and then it stops. So according to the tests, I was fine. But according to life, my mother was like, this is not how my daughter should be acting. So after several tests and seeing several doctors, when they finally put me on insulin in Johannesburg, my mother noticed a huge difference. I was my happy, chappy self, this same girl you see on stage in the screen. Now, it's not been easy, so I'm going to share a little bit of my journey. So when I was about 8 years old, I went to a birthday party, and bearing in mind I've grown up my whole life here in Zambia, I ate exactly what my mother told me, which is what the nurse told me, which was fresh fruit, organic, brown bread, low fat, everything that's available to us here in Zambia. So I went to this birthday party, and my mother packed me sandwiches and fruit because I'd never eaten crisps up until that point, and it was a birthday party. So my mom was obviously worried about my blood sugars, and I walked in, and the children were there in the veranda wondering, why has my mom brought me sandwiches? And that was the first time I felt different. Now, you're 8 years old, you're a child, you're resilient, you move on. Then in my teenage years, I wanted to be skinny, you see the girls in the magazine. I ate less, I exercised a lot. I ended up putting my body under so much pressure that I ended up having a diabetic fit. And that was a lesson, a hard lesson I learned, and I realized to value my body. I went to university, and that's when you learn about alcohol. I've now learned that I can probably only have one drink, but I still do have a little bit here or there. That's when I started going out, that's when I started dating. I remember one guy asked me, is diabetes contagious? I didn't know what that meant. And then after university, I proceeded to apply to a model agency because I thought, why not? There's nothing wrong with me. I should try. And I actually more recently got my big gig on Qatar Airways. I'm in the in-flight safety video. I also started working. I worked in a variety of offices and factories around the world. I worked in New York, I worked in London, I worked in Joburg, I worked here in Osaka. As you can see, diabetes has not stopped me. But one thing I will say is, during all those times when I was 8 years old, when the girls looked at me different, when I was 17, when they called me fat, and I thought, oh, there's something wrong with me. In my 20s, when that guy asked about diabetes being contagious, I realized it was nothing wrong with me, but it's taken me a long time to understand that. It's those around me who didn't understand. It was was a lack of information and a lack of awareness. And that's what's led me to my outreach work. So I have active channels for Instagram and YouTube where I raise awareness around diabetes. I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And I also lead small workshops, and I've done one-to-one sessions with young diabetics here in Zambia. I also proceeded to be part of a huge campaign for Diabetes UK during the pandemic while I was there, and it's now still on nationwide TV to show my lifestyle, saying again, diabetes has never stopped me in my life. And so for the longest time, if I can do it, especially type 1, which is the more difficult one, so can you. Whether it's diabetes or any limitation, nothing should stop you. So I just want to set the scene. Diabetes around the world is the highest projected number of cases worldwide. It's also the highest estimated number of people living with the condition without actually knowing it, which also means that they're at high risk of life-threatening complications, amputations, eye issues, kidney issues. And unfortunately, it's got the lowest investment rate in diabetes care worldwide, with only 1% coming to Africa's health expenditure. We've seen how big Africa is. So I'm not just talking about money, but I'm also talking about having the right skills, the right doctors in place, having the right medication. We don't have access to that, and yet it's a ticking time bomb. So I'd like to highlight what the situation is right now. We live in a time-scarce society, and we eat convenience food. Now, this is what I believe. Our forefathers would be working on the fields, working on the train tracks, and they'd be eating 2, 3, 4 lumps of shima, maybe a stack of chapatis, and sugar in their tea, and they're gonna burn it off. But the thing is, especially in communities of color, everything is communal. You eat together, you live together, you do things together, and that's the beauty of it. But at the same time, we're also eating that same way. But we're not burning it off in the fields, we're sitting at a desk. And so this is why diabetes, especially in communities of color, is growing that much more. And it doesn't help that now it looks cool on Instagram to show, oh look, I'm drinking a Coca-Cola, or I've had a Hungry Lion. Because today, we have a lot more disposable income to buy these types of foods, which our grandparents didn't have. They made their money, they put the food on the table, and that was it. So we're showing the world that we have disposable income for these foods, but it's actually making us sick. And by the time we reach 50, maybe even 40, you have a condition which you could have reversed so easily. Now, type 1 is different compared to type 2, but the trainings are similar. And through all my experiences, I've been trying to help so many people say, we have so much here in Zambia that can help us be healthy. Now, because we don't have a lot of awareness and a lot of information around this, we, unfortunately, in communities of color, try and rationalize why someone's cut off their leg or why something's happening. This is how urban myths happen. I mean, just yesterday I read a story and someone called diabetes the thirsty monster, and they went to a witch doctor to try and medicate. Now, if we have the right information and the right awareness, you go straight to the doctor and get the right medication, whether it's metformin or whether it's insulin, whatever it may be. So for us to dispel these urban myths, we need to bring these conversations to light. And why my biggest worry is that it's going to affect our working generation. I mean, if you think about it, with this lifestyle right now, we're the working generation. If you have a company, you've trained your staff, 3 months go by, and then suddenly, oh, my hand is hurting, oh, my toe is hurting, let me go see the doctor. You haven't had any information going on. The diabetes has become so severe, and now you're cutting off a toe, you're cutting off a hand. You've lost your staff to run that part of the business, but that person is also the breadwinner of their family, and they've now lost an income, all because we are just not talking about it. So this is why I worry about the next generation. Now, I didn't specify earlier, but I've mentioned Africa, but in Zambia, the prevalence of diabetes in Zambia is 11.9% of Zambians between the ages of 20 and 79 are diabetic, and 50% of those don't even know. Now, that's a ticking time bomb, if you think about it. It's the next working generation. They don't know, they won't be able to work. Maybe by 35, they won't be able to work, they won't have a job. They'll be spending so much time trying to reset their mindset. How? That we don't talk about it, there's no real resources around it. It's going to be a lot more difficult, and it's happening in every second household. What is going to happen for our economy going forward? And this is why this is so dear to my heart. I really want us to talk more about this, and I would like to help and be a vision of health. I mean, I've had diabetes 33 years. If I can do it, so can all of you. So coming back to what I'm doing right now, I have started a diabetes health and wellness consultancy. I coach individual one-to-one, and I also do consultations for corporate companies. And I've called it the Afro-Desi diabetic because I've lived my whole life in Zambia. I understand the African landscape, but Desi is the colloquial term for Indian because that is also my ethnic heritage. I also have a sportswear range, which I have affectionately called Afroleisure. I'm actually wearing it right now, because I pay homage to Zambia for bringing me to be the healthy person I am today. I design my own Chitenge and put on sportswear because I've been at the gym since I was so young, and I want us to talk more about activity, be active together as a society, because that's what's going to help reverse type 2 diabetes. And I'm also a children's author, which the MC mentioned earlier. With the way diabetes is moving, now imagine we are eating junk food now. We're in our 20s, 30s, 40s. By 50, you'd be type 2 diabetic. You will be able to look after yourself very well. But imagine this generation now, who are on their iPads all the time. They've grown up with chips. They've grown up with junk food. They'll be diabetic by 20. So I want to also ensure that the youth of our nation also understand diabetes. So I wrote this book. It's about a jellybean. He's full of sugar, of course. And he goes through a journey to get himself better. And those who've actually bought the book and read it to their kids, they come to me and say, Kaajal, we've learned so much about diabetes through this book. So it's not just the kids, it's the parents of the kids. And just FYI, that little jellybean character is me. I've gone through this whole journey of 33 years, and I'm here to help and provide my experiences. So going forward, what do I want us to do? I want to build awareness, which is what I'm doing right now. But we need to build education. We need more systems around this. We need to talk about this more. I say it's like a cut. If you bring a cut up to air, it's going to heal. But if you keep it covered, it's never going to heal. So we have to do that in our societies. I say Zambia is the best place to be healthy, but we keep choosing to live like the West. We have organic foods growing on our trees and in our gardens. People in the West are paying out their backside to eat this kind of food. We have great weather. There it's raining, snowing, there's always something going on. It's difficult. We have everything at our fingertips, and we choose not to follow that, when it's so easy to live a healthy life. So, as I say, I'm a diabetic. So what? I hope that my experiences can help inspire another generation, all of you, to live your best life, because if it hasn't stopped me, it can definitely not stop you. My name is Kaajal Vaghela. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.